Hello class. In this video we're gonna be going over Deliverable 2. Let me go full screen over here. Perfect. And Firefox. Okay, so Deliverable 2 right over here. So just make sure you use proper markdown format. All of this will be very useful to you. So let's get started with the project requirements over here. So you have to include all of this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to open my repository. So I'm going to go to CIS 106, final project, and over here, actually, if you want, you can create a folder and put Deliverable 2 in a folder, but I don't think it's important. So I'm just going to open VS Code real quick. And then right over here under final project, I'm gonna create a new file. I'm gonna call it deliverable2.md. Perfect. I'm gonna close that. Get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way, and I don't need this for now. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build the layout of my document. So that's what I suggest you do the first day that you start working on this. I'm gonna start with heading 2. So what is virtualization? Just gonna copy paste, make my life easy. Okay, then the next section is VirtualBox, right? So this is also gonna be heading number 2. VirtualBox. Then installing Ubuntu server. Okay, installing Ubuntu. That's another section heading 2. Installing Ubuntu. Now, if you are doing the default project, you're just gonna type installing Ubuntu. But if you're doing the a custom project that requires Ubuntu server, then you will have to say installing Ubuntu server, right? And then the rest of the title will be installing Ubuntu in VirtualBox. Again, if you're using Ubuntu server, you need to specify here that you're using Ubuntu server. Then a section for updating Ubuntu. Then this section should be under this. Updating Ubuntu. Okay. For the default project, you need to include how to update the system. Okay, so we're gonna put over here how to updating Ubuntu, installing software in Ubuntu. And then here we're gonna create a subsection for Ubuntu Software Center. Actually, I'm gonna let you play around with that. Let's just create the titles for now. So installing software in Ubuntu. Okay, installing software, updating Ubuntu, and installing software. That's perfectly fine. Then basic Linux commands. Then here we're gonna create a section for basic Linux commands, right? And we're gonna divide this category into 2. Navigating the file system, right? And then we're gonna create another category for managing files and directories. And that's about it. I only want these 2 sections over here because this particular section, we are going to expand it in the final deliverable. But for now, this is good. Then let's continue over here. And that's about it. I think that's about it over here. Now, this is for people that are gonna be using a virtual machine, right? Now I'm gonna create another deliverable project, but this is gonna be for people that are using a Raspberry Pi. So let me create a new document here and call it deliverable 2 Raspberry Pi.md. Okay, so for people that are going to be using a Raspberry Pi, we're gonna copy almost the same thing. The only difference is that instead of VirtualBox, we're gonna try here Raspberry Pi. And this one you're gonna talk, and in this section is that you're gonna be talking about what a Raspberry Pi is and all of that. Now, Depending on what operating system you're going to use on the Raspberry Pi, you have options. You can use Ubuntu, you can also use Raspberry Pi OS, Raspberry Pi OS, or you can use any other Debian-based Linux distribution on the Raspberry Pi. That's up to you. Some of you are using Kali, for example, because you're doing something related to ethical hacking. Now, here in this part, you're going to put the operating system that you're using. Instead, we're going to replace the word VirtualBox with Raspberry Pi, because that's the platform that you're using. Then here, updating, and then whatever operating system that you're using, you need to show how do you update that operating system on the Raspberry Pi. How do you install software in that operating system as well? That stays, basic commands stays, all of that stays the same. And that's about it. This is the outline. Now, let's say that in the first day, you only got this done. That's fine. You did that on day one. I'm going to open a terminal, and I'm going to do my git commands. Git pull, make sure everything is up to date. Git add period. Git commit -m, started, deliverable 2, and then git push. Now, let's say next day, you want to continue working on your project. Okay, perfectly fine. You turn on your virtual machine, you open VS Code, you open your repository, perfect. Okay, now you want to get started with the first section of the project. What is virtualization? This is what you should include here in this section. You should include basic definition, types of definition of what it is, types of virtualization. You should include some sort of diagram here. You can find that on the presentation. There is a nice picture over there that can reflect both of them. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I am going to put here some dummy text, just to show you how the document is gonna look like. Then types of virtual machine, type of virtualization. This is gonna be a heading 3, right? And we're gonna put client side. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a bullet point here. Client side virtualization, and then server side virtualization. Okay, and then here you're going to explain hypervisor, right? You're gonna talk about what a hypervisor is, and then types of hypervisors, right? And then that's about it. Now, this information can be found in the presentations that we have for the class. All you have to do is expand a little bit on that, right? As much as you see needed. As long as you deliver the content in a manner that can be understood generally, it's fine. Just don't be cheap, like a one-liner that nobody understands, right? You're writing a technical document for somebody that is non-technical. I'm expecting a little bit of explanation here, not just a random copy-paste from the internet that not even you understand, right? Because I can tell when you're just copy-pasting garbage from the internet that not even you understand. Like, that's very easy to tell. So when you're done explaining that, this can be also a heading 3, and this can be also a heading 3. Yeah, we can do lorem. Right, and I'm gonna bold this so that it looks nice. I'm gonna bold this so that it looks nice, right? We put a little bit of space in between. And client-side virtualization, let me see if I can find a nice picture online of client-side virtualization. Let's see. Oh, this is actually a very good document. It's a very good document. I'm going to actually give you this. So you can find the link to this document in the final document final document chat in Slack. You should read this. This seems like an interesting document, and some of these images are actually interesting too. For example, this over here, like these images you can use, they are really nice. Just make sure that you provide this in that you cite this, right, in your works cited, that you cited this document, because you're copying from this document. So you should read this document and fact check that as well, because it seems very useful. What I'm gonna do is that this image over here I'm gonna copy. I'm just gonna copy this URL here, and I'm gonna put over here inside virtualization, just as an example. What is virtualization? I'm gonna put this little image over here, and I like to put a little break tag at the end of every image, because I want to make sure that the image displays in a single line. So we're gonna go here, and we're gonna go virtualization. Right? It's a nice little image right there, and it would be nice to have a picture over here of client-side virtualization and a picture over here of server-side virtualization. That will make your document more readable. Types of hypervisors, so we have tier 1 and tier 2, right? So we have tier 1, and then you have tier 2. Right, and we do the same here. Right, and then once let's say that that's all you wanted to do that day. You finish working with virtualization. Okay, perfect. Let's do the same thing. Let's save our work. Git add period, git commit -m virtualization done, then git push. Then the following day you want to work on something, you want to work on something else. Okay, perfect. VirtualBox. What is VirtualBox? Right? And it's useful to put in here the logo of VirtualBox. So let's see if we can find that. VirtualBox. This image looks pretty big. Open image menu tab. Somewhat. Just gonna copy the URL, and I'm gonna put it on my document over here. VirtualBox logo, right? Then here we put what is VirtualBox, right? One paragraph is fine, and then here we put how to install VirtualBox, how to install VirtualBox in Windows 10. And if you want, you can put on a step-by-step instruction over here. One, download installer from, and then you provide the URL of where you download installer. Let's see here. Okay, to start installer by double click, start installer, right? And it would be good that you can, if you want to put a couple of pictures in this section, that's fine, but that's up to you. And then over here, once installer is done, install extension pack. Anyway, I'm just doing one-liners, but I expect you to actually provide a little bit more of information You can watch the video that we watched at the beginning of the semester, or the first lab, the second lab that we did on how to install VirtualBox, and then from there you can build, a little step-by-step section here on how to install VirtualBox. If you feel like you need a picture in there, you can put it in there as well. What else? Yeah, I think once you have completed this section, then you're done with that part. Then you start here on how to install Ubuntu. This is also going to be a step-by-step section. 10 steps, right? So, sorry. Right, so part 1, step 1. Step 2. Actually, it would be useful here that you create a section for how to create a virtual machine. And then again, you hear step by step on how to create a virtual machine. All of that can be found in the material for the course and in the videos that we have provided so far. Just make sure you provide a little bit of a description, and yeah, that's about it, right? Obviously, it could be more, it could be lesser steps. I'm just building the document as an example so that you have a frame, an idea of what you need to do, or what you need to give me. Installing Ubuntu in VirtualBox, same thing. Step 2, step 3. And again, you can find pictures on each and every one of the steps, either in the presentation, or you can make them yourself in your computer, or however you choose. However you choose to do it, that's up to you. But in this section over here, and in this section, I'm expecting to see a couple of pictures in there, right? Because this is a very graphical section of your document, right? And just a tiny description of what the picture is doing. And that's about it. Then updating Ubuntu, over here you're going to provide the command used for updating Ubuntu, and you're going to explain the command. Now, here is a tip. CIS106.com, module 1. If you go to the managing software section, it's highly addictive, so it makes people wait in lines. Okay, whatever that ad means. Presentation. So if you go to the presentation, here is the update command, right? You can take a screenshot of this. And you can use this in your document, and I'm okay with that. As long as you explain the picture, it's fine, right? So let's do this. Let's save this. Let's put it in here. Let's put it in final project. And let's call this update.png. Right? Let's put over here. Let's put the image over here. As long as you explain the picture, that's fine, right? Provide some feedback, not just copy pasting, right? You need to demonstrate that you understand what you're doing. You can just put it right over here. Little paragraph, that's it. That's about it. Then installing software. That presentation contains everything you need about installing software. You need to include installation command examples, right? Searching for software, right? Deleting software, right? So you have examples of all of that. So let's say how to delete software. Okay, remember to format your commands, right? So to format, as code, we can use the backticks: sudo apt remove plus package name, example, sudo apt remove VLC will remove the VLC package. Right? There you go. Look how nice it looks over here. You can also use, if you have multiple lines of code, you can use this. Let's say, for example, here, to remove and clean and purge a package, use 1, 2, 3 1, 2, 3 sudo apt remove VLC, sudo apt purge VLC, sudo apt auto remove, and so on, right? This is if you were to create a multi-line code section, right? Just remember the formatting that you need to use, and that's about it. Okay, so you can also provide the screenshots from your own terminal if you want. If you want to create a GIF, you can do it as well, and I'll show you how to do it in a moment. Now, when you complete this section over here, save your document and then continue another day. You don't need to do this in an entire day. Let's say that you completed the installing Ubuntu, the installing software section, right? Perfect. I'm gonna open a terminal, new terminal, and again, git add period, git commit -m, installing software, git push. Okay, perfect. Now I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna open a terminal. I'm gonna show you a nice command, nice program that I use. Sudo apt update. I haven't installed software in a while, so let me do an update before I do anything. Just make sure that my sources are up to date. Sudo apt install pick. Yes. Now pick is a very cool software, and I'll explain and I'll show you why. For example, the program that I use for creating these little GIFs over here that you see on my presentations is the one that I just installed right now, pick. And you can use it for your document as well. For instance, we don't need that open anymore, and I don't need that open anymore. Right, and I don't need that open anymore either. I don't need that open, neither that, and I don't think I need this open anymore either. Nope. Okay. Clear, and I'm gonna open pick. Office, Internet, Graphics, pick. So I'm gonna place it over here, and I'm gonna increase the size of this window to be the size of my terminal. That's good enough. And let's say that I'm going to explain how to create, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna make it like this so that it covers exactly my terminal and nothing else, right? So let's say I want to explain how to create a folder, right? I'm gonna use the mkdir command as an example for how to create folders, for the make directory command. Okay, I'm gonna click on record as GIF, mkdir wallpapers, mkdir -p wallpapers, cars, new, right? 3 wallpapers. I'm gonna click stop, and I'm gonna save this file in my home CIS 106 final project, and I'm gonna call this mkdir.gif. I'm gonna click on save. I'm gonna close pick, close this, close the terminal, and let's open Visual Studio Code one more time. Okay, file, open folder, my repository, click OK, I close that. Okay, now in this section over here, basic commands, nothing to write over here. We're just gonna go straight to navigating the file system. And here you can either write a table if you want, or you can do it this way. First command, mkdir. Gonna bold it. As a matter of fact, 1, 2, 3, 4. KDIR, and here I'm gonna put usage, description, usage, examples, right? And in the description, we're gonna put what is the command used for. Used for creating directories, right? That's good enough. One simple line explaining what the command does. Not looking for a big explanation here because it's not needed. Usage. This means the formula that the command follows. mkdir plus option plus directory path. New directory path. And here I'm gonna format this as code to make it look pretty. Example, create a directory in the present working directory. The example here, mkdir wallpaper, right? Create a directory create a parent directory and child directory. mkdir wallpaper cars new, right? And here we can put a little GIF, mkdir.gif, and here mkdir. Now take a look at how this looks. Format document and see how nice the document looks so far. That makes the document looks much better, doesn't it? And you're gonna do the same thing for all the other commands used. Actually, this doesn't go here. This goes here, right? That goes there. And that's about it. All the examples and definitions and usages of the command can be found in the presentation. You can just copy from there, nice and neat. Now, you don't need to provide GIFs. I just did this as an example of what you can do. And a picture is fine. As a matter of fact, the description, the usage, and the example is fine. If you don't have a GIF, I'm not going to take points off. If you don't have a picture, I'm not going to take points off. But this, much more professional. Just letting you know. Looks much more professional, looks much more technical. It's just easier to understand. And somebody that, might not know a lot, it's easier for them to understand than if they have something graphical to go by. Once you have completed this section, I'm assuming you did all the other commands. I'm going to open a terminal. Git add period, git commit -m, commands done, git push. I'm going to close this, and your deliverable 2 is done. Your deliverable 2 is done. You have completed everything because you have all your commands or your stuff. Now you can simply convert this file to PDF. And submit. Now, when it comes to the Raspberry Pi project over here, because there are a couple of things here that I want to explain, right? So What is virtualization? Yeah, you do have to include what is virtualization. So the same thing that I explained over here goes for you as well. You do have to explain what is virtualization, so I'm just gonna copy this. Why? Because virtualization is part of the course, right? It's part of the requirements of the class. You have to know how to do it, right? It's not an option over there. You gotta know how to do it. And how to create a virtual machine, yes. Installing Ubuntu in VirtualBox. That's when you stop, right here. That's when you stop right here, because you're not going to be doing it in your project, so there is no point on explaining this. I'm not going to penalize you if you include it. It would be nice if you include it, but if you don't have it, I'm okay. If you don't have it, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, as a matter of fact, if you want, you don't need to include that either. As you include what virtualization is and the different type of hypervisors, that's fine. I'm going to cut you some slack there. Why? Because it's not like you're going to be using a virtual machine for your project, right? I just have it as part of your final project because it's part of the course, and it's nothing we can escape about that. It's a requirement of the college. So let me close the preview because we don't need it open for the time being. Now, when it comes to what is a Raspberry Pi, you have an entire presentation about what is a Raspberry Pi. So a couple of paragraphs here, what it is, a brief background on the Raspberry Pi, and that's about it. You should include a section here with different models of the Raspberry Pi, right? And you should put here, you can either do a couple of pictures of the models and their hardware specifications. You can write a table, you know, or you can write a couple of paragraphs, however you choose, right? So let's say, however you choose to do that section, I'm okay. Then you should put over there the Raspberry Pi that you're using, which I suppose is going to be version 4, and that's it. Here, when it comes to installing Ubuntu on the Raspberry Pi, same thing goes as I explained for the other in the other part. A step-by-step guide on how you install it on the Raspberry Pi. You might find that information available online, or you might do it yourself while you're doing the installation on your own Raspberry Pi. That's up to you. How you do this section is up to you. My advice, a step-by-step guide with a couple of pictures that you can either take with your phone or you can do a screen grab, however you choose to do it. I'm going to leave that to you. You have total freedom on that particular regard. Updating Ubuntu and updating software in Ubuntu, same thing goes for everybody. Same thing. It's the same thing as for the other part as well. Just explain the command that is used, put a picture in there as well. The same thing goes over here. Same thing. No difference there. At this point, that's about it. So I'm gonna save this. If you have any questions, which I guarantee you're gonna have throughout doing this deliverable, reach out to me via Slack. Don't leave this to the last minute. This document is a little bit more complex, despite the fact that it's shorter than the other one. So please do not leave this for the last minute, because it's gonna take you longer to do it just because it requires a little bit more technical reading. So let me just git add period, git commit -m, deliverable done, deliverable 2 done, and then git push. Okay, this is done. We can close that, and here in Firefox, GitHub. Man, everybody's talking about Will Smith. This is our repo. We go to find a project. Deliverable 2 is right over here, and this is the URL that you're gonna give me. The beautiful thing about using GIFs is that they display properly in GitHub, because GitHub is a website. There is another thing that I want to teach you, and is this. For example, sometimes images are too big. You can either go online, image resizer, and then just use one of these tools, like simple image resizer, to just reduce the size of the image so that it looks nice on your document. Because to be honest with you, this logo is way too big. It's really too big. So one thing that you could do is, let me just save this file here in downloads, select image, downloads, open, and I would like this to be 50% smaller than its size. Now click on download, and this is much better, right? This is much better. Save image as VBox. Save. And right here, .md. It didn't change much. Oh, right here. Change the raw file. But you get the idea. Actually, this was a nice mistake, because then you get to see the difference. Do you see how nice it is when the image is a moderate size rather than this gigantic thing? You know, you can also do this on the command line. There is actually a program for that. That program is imagemagick. So you can do sudo apt install imagemagick. I think I misspelled it. Yep, I misspelled it. Okay, so over here with this program, this is how you can use it for resizing images. So I'm gonna go to my downloads folder, and this is the image that I have, which has a weird name, so I'm just gonna rename it real quick to VBox logo large.png. Okay, perfect. Let's say that I want to resize this image, right? So I can do convert resize, and then how much bigger I want the picture from its original size. Well, let's say 40%. So 40%, and then you provide the image, which is VBox logo.large, and as the last argument you provide the new name for the image, which is VBox large, in my case VBox logo smaller. Press enter. Now notice that I have now two images in my folder. This is the much smaller version of the same image, so let's take a look. This is the small one, so the large one, and this is the small one. And wow, that is way too small. Ooh. Wow, that's terrible. Let's see, let's change this to 60%, let's say, 60%. Oof, I made a mistake here. This minus 60%. Supposed to be 40%. There you go, that's much better. There you go, there you go. That minus sign was minus 400%, 40%, which is not what we want. We want positive 40%. And that's about it. See the difference in size? So that's how you can resize an image on the command line. I'll make a separate video on different tools that I use for making my markdown documents. If you want it sooner, I'm scheduling that for probably next week, but if you want the video sooner, I can try to cram it during the weekend. But that's about it. If you have any question, please let me know. And yeah, take care.